What's up, Internet? This is an example run slash guide for no return on grounded difficulty with Joel, but we're not concerned with getting a high score or anything, just surviving if you're trying to get your first grounded run. Which means that we're not above necessarily resorting to arguably lame tactics. For example, a lot of the levels have relatively easy hiding spots you can abuse. I will show those when they're relevant, but it won't come into play quite as much with Joel. For a couple of reasons, I think he's a character where you're better off leaning into more aggressive infected-based encounters. For one, your default pill tree has the Craft 2 Shivs upgrade, which makes clicker and stalker grabs not quite as big of a deal. But more importantly, his revolver, you can hold 24 bullets and put 12 in the gun at once. It fires kind of slowly, but you have enough of it that you can basically just fight them head on. Anyway, this level has two sort of okay hiding spots. One of them is the desk here where you can see me hiding. This generally works kind of okay against human enemies, but infected will find you pretty quickly. But the other one is like the entrance in the corner of the level, kind of through those doors there. And that one is definitely a lot better with infected. I got spotted pretty quickly here, as you can see, but the point isn't to hide the whole time, it's just to burn as much of the clock as you can before you have to start fighting. That there is one of the safer ways that you can take out two human enemies at once without taking any damage. Just bottle the first one, grab them, and then shoot the other from behind. And when it's the first encounter like this, there aren't too many enemies on the map, and you can often get back into stealth after you kill them, so the hiding spot you can kind of reuse. Notice here when I'm shooting this enemy that I don't shoot the second shot right away necessarily. I use the stagger animation to make sure I've properly lined it up so that I don't miss. You should always do that when you're killing an enemy with body shots instead of just like freaking out and shooting as fast as you can. You'll save a lot of ammo that way. Anyway, at this point I decided it was finally time to abandon the quote-unquote hiding spot and go on the other side of the map just to hopefully burn as much time as I can. You'll always have to do that eventually, because if there are more enemies on the map, you can get surrounded more easily. This right here, you could definitely argue, is a kind of abusive use of the persistent dot in the middle there to get a lined up shot with that guy, but I didn't have a brick. Anyway, with the clock running down to the wire here, I just decided to run away, and right here you'll see I got kind of screwed over by that Seraphite's landing animation. Somehow he didn't get hit by my melee weapon and grab me, but thankfully it was the very end anyway. Speaking of the persistent dot in the middle of the screen there, I am actually using a couple of settings that are abusive slash arguably on the cusp of cheating. With the dot there, you can actually line up a headshot and pop up from cover and kill a human enemy really quickly. You're probably not supposed to be able to do that, and I don't think I do it here, but yeah, it is something that can be abused for sure. You might have also noticed I've got the location indicators on for the subtitles. That kind of gives you a pretty good idea of where the enemies are when they're talking, so that's also gray area at best, but if you're trying to get your first grounded run, maybe it's an acceptable compromise. Anyway, that was a very good dead drop. We got the hunting pistol for free. You may notice if you watch the top players that they will very rarely buy it and might not even pick it up when it's free like that, but that isn't because it's not good, it's because it's not that good for getting points. It's very good if you are just trying to not die and you only sort of know what you're doing, like me. Or you, presumably, if you're watching this. Anyway, at this point, you want to take a look at your board and see what all of the routes are and figure out which one you want to do. Generally, your best bet is to pick whatever has the easiest last two encounters, because the encounters get harder as they go, obviously. Or at least they have more enemies anyway. I guess sometimes you get easy ones that have a lot of enemies. But the reason you want to do this now is to figure out not only what pill trees you're getting, but also what you're going to need from the shop. Not just now, but in general across the run. You might have noticed that I looked at the shop, but the only thing I actually bought was the pipe bomb recipe. That's because it's the only thing that was there that I knew no matter what I was going to want. But once you've figured out what your route's going to be, and in this case, by the way, it's going to be the second one from the top, then you can decide, okay, what weapons do I need and by when, and you can plan your use of the shop that way. You can still get screwed over by bad luck, like let's say you need, by the fourth encounter, you have a holdout where you need a shotgun. You could still just get unlucky and not get it. But if you at least know that that's what you need by that time, you can opt not to buy certain things earlier on in order to do a reroll for it or things like that, just to make sure you have the best possible chance of getting the thing that you actually need. For this run, I decided that the only thing I really wanted in terms of my weapon loadout was a shotgun, because I already have the hunting pistol and the revolver. I didn't think I was going to need trap mines for this board. Maybe I could buy like one for the bloater later, but the recipe wasn't important, so I re-rolled while I still had enough to buy the shotgun on the second page if it was there. In hindsight, I think the semi-auto rifle would have been just as good of a pickup here, but I wouldn't want to get both. I think one of the most natural mistakes you can make is just buying too many guns. It's easy to think, okay, well, I'd rather have another gun that I can keep getting ammo for as opposed to 4 pipe bombs that will be gone after I use them. But if you have more guns, you're going to get more ammo for more guns, and sometimes that's actually kind of inconvenient, like you get what you don't want. I would actually encourage you with the dead drop, if you get a gun that you don't actually want, you don't need to pick it up. Like if I had been given the crossbow or the flamethrower here, I would just leave it there. Like the last thing you want is to get a bunch of ammo for a gun that you're not really going to use and maybe isn't even in a holster right now. And if you are going for a bunch of guns, having to get the holster really adds to how much you need to invest in it. That could have been a whole bunch of supplies that would just let you kill stuff. Anyway, something to bear in mind for capture encounters, not dying is more important than getting the safe. Or maybe a better way to put it is being safe is more important than the safe. If you don't care about getting a high score or whatever, you'll actually get a lot more by killing most of the enemies and then just looting the whole level than you will from the safe itself, unless you specifically want parts for some reason. Here I actually got a really good gambit. 12 bullets just for throwing a brick, so there you can see I went all the way up to 18. Even in this encounter though, something about that clock, like I could have been a lot more passive and looted all the offices behind me after I killed most of the enemies, because the last one will just guard the safe. So if you've killed everyone else, you can just go loot everything. It's kind of tedious, but if you're just trying to get your first grounded completion, that's probably what you should do. Also, you probably noticed that I went to the bench but didn't actually get any upgrades. One thing I like to do is get the scope on the hunting pistol before a capture encounter. And you might think, well, what's the point? It already kills in one shot, you don't need to aim for the head. But on capture encounters, you can actually shoot someone just from really far away to kind of thin the herds for free. And if you go back to the beginning of the level, usually most of the enemies in a capture encounter won't follow you that far. Here I tried to do that without the scope and I just got spotted, so oops. I actually played this part here rather stupidly, the way I walk around this corner. Like, he definitely could have shot me. He was a shotgun guy. I probably would have died, so don't do that. Yeah, this turned into a little bit of a shit show. You can see right there I used that same tactic where I bottle someone, grab, and then shoot from behind. I definitely shouldn't have gone around that corner of the door there because I saw the hit indicator. I knew someone was shooting me from behind, so I really opened myself up to possibly dying there. Also, right here, watch this third shot. See, I got a little trigger happy there and shot right away instead of lining up the shot using the stagger animation, like I mentioned in the first mission, so yeah. Definitely bear that in mind when you're doing body shot kills. Yeah, watching this back, that persistent dot really is helping here. I'm not lining up like really easy headshots or anything, but it really is helping with these firefights, let's say. Here, at the time I was playing, I remember I was like, oh shit, why did I go for the strangle? I'm not going to get the safe now. But I think you actually still get the safe as long as you kill everyone before the timer runs out. But I don't know, don't quote me. Maybe I was right to run straight for it here. But honestly, the contents of the safe are not always that important anyway. I guess it kind of depends what pill trees you have and if it lets you get a certain upgrade by a certain time, but at least when you're an Abby weapon character, like the weapon upgrades really don't matter that much. They just don't have as many that are useful compared to the Ellie weapons. Like for the loadout I'm going for here, really the shotgun reload is the only like somewhat essential upgrade. Also, the hunting pistol scope can be useful for capture, like I mentioned before, but this is my only capture, and as far as capture maps go, it's not really the most ideal for that because it's not like a big, long, open area, you know, like where you can shoot them from far away and then run away and get back into stealth. The stability and accuracy for that gun are okay, but I mean, I think of it more as like a Resident Evil Magnum than I do like a sniper pistol, so you're really mostly shooting at center of mass anyway. To be honest, I've always thought that gun should have had a reload speed upgrade like the shotgun, but anyway. The remaining encounters on my board here are all infected, and I'm planning to play them aggressively, so I actually probably just as easily could have bought that semi-auto rifle, and I think it would have been quite good. The semi-auto rifle is another weapon that doesn't benefit too much from upgrades. The capacity is always good. The burst fire can be good against bosses, but it's actually really bad against regular enemies because if you miss, you miss 3 times. The stability doesn't seem like it really does much to me because the gun is already really stable. And then the scope is kind of the same thing as the hunting pistol scope. You can use it in capture to get free kills. Anyway, here, as you can see, I'm healing up and deciding what to do about my pills. I'm also deciding, like, should I craft health kits or buy them? And I decide to buy them instead because I want to save the alcohol for pipe bombs. And here I have enough pills, I realize, to get the Shiv upgrade before I craft them, which is important because I have only infected enemies left. I will mention that there are actually scenarios where it might make sense to craft Shivs that you're not actually going to need, just so that you can put them in the dead drop. If you don't know how dead drops work, there are 3 of them, one in the first encounter, one in the third, and one in the 5th. For the first one, you only have to put in 1 item, and then for the other 2, it's 2, I believe. The first one you should always do because you give one thing that's worth about 3 coins and you always get something of equal or usually greater value. And if you get a recipe you don't need, it's still not bad because it means that you aren't going to get it in the shop later. So if there's something you need, you at least have a better chance of getting it. Oh, and here I decided to get stability and accuracy on the hunting pistol because I don't have anything else to get, and I'm not really going to be sniping with it, so the scope's not really an issue anymore. Anyway, the second and third dead drops are a little more situational, particularly because you're giving 2 things for 1. Except with Bill, of course, so he's the one where you're gonna do it the most. I would say Joel is one of the characters where it's more likely that you're actually gonna want to use the second and third dead drops just because sometimes it will ask you for Shivs and you can often craft 2 and maybe you don't need them anymore on your board. I would say Marlene and Dina are 2 other characters where you might use it a little more. Marlene because sometimes you get really rough gambits and you don't get any money or anything, so with the dead drop you can at least get something. And Dina just because she can craft 2 things at a time, like with her default pill upgrade tree. But a lot of the time the second and third dead drop is looking for like valuable materials that you might be saving up for the boss or something, so it's really going to be more situational. Anyway, I have a lot of ammo and Shivs going into this encounter, so we can afford to be quite aggressive. I am going to hide at the beginning, but basically once it starts, we're just going to kill them. And like I mentioned early on, Joel is quite good at this, just because you can hold so much ammo for your revolver. Also, because of its high capacity, it holds 12, so if you just get like an angle from far away in an infected encounter like this, you can just shoot 12 times in a row and kill pretty much all of them before they can get close. That doesn't work so well with humans who can fire back, obviously, but the only infected that have a ranged attack are bloaters that you aren't going to have in these kind of encounters. Not too much to say about this first wave. I was sort of starting to sneak over to the end of the long corridor there, but I ended up just having to fight him right here. It's a good thing this was in between waves because I really got stuck on that post there. This game does some weird stuff like that with inertia when you run into certain things. But anyway, this end of the corridor is a pretty decent place to camp because usually they'll spawn way on the other side and you can just start shooting them and you got lots of time to kill them before they get there with the revolver. But there's also a good spot right up here behind these crates because they take a while to get to you. And this wave is the more textbook example of what I mean when I say that Joel is great for just straight up fighting infected enemies because the revolver has so much ammo in it. You can just shoot them and they usually don't have time to get to you. For this wave, I decided to switch to the hunting pistol just because there was so much ammo for it lying around. I wanted to, if possible, leave the level with full ammo for both guns. I definitely didn't need to waste that second bullet on the one on the ground, but there's plenty of hunting pistol ammo around here, thankfully. Here you can see I actually also hesitated to make sure I didn't pick up more than I could actually carry. Sometimes if you, say, only have one left that you can pick up, but it's like a stack of 3 or something, the other ones will just get deleted, so you should try not to pick up more than you can actually carry. Ideally, you just leave it there, use the couple extra bullets, and then pick it up when you can actually pick up all of them. But anyway, here I'm down to just stalkers, so I'm trying to sort of lure them out and kill them with brick and melee. I actually got kinda close to being grabbed there, to be honest. Also, notice the way that I turn around there. I also move the left stick, like for movement, so that I continue to run away from the stalker as I'm turning the camera. Like if you just hold forward on the left stick while you're turning the camera with the right, you're gonna move in this sort of circular to the left or right motion that will mean that the stalker will probably catch up to you. In general, stalker grabs are one of the bigger concerns when you're playing one of the no-dodge characters, but at least with Joel you always have the Shiv recipe and you can pretty easily get the craft 2 at a time upgrade, so you don't have to be quite so afraid of stalkers, or clickers for that matter, as Joel compared to the others. It is something you have to bear in mind though, because aside from just keeping your distance, giving up a Shiv is really the only counterplay against stalkers, if you even want to call it that. But I would say that's more of an issue with Tommy and Bill, where you need to actually buy the Shiv recipe and you can't get the craft 2 Shivs upgrade. With Joel it's usually not as big of a deal. But you do need to make sure you get that upgrade if you are going for an infected heavy route, which I think often makes sense. Another sort of random thing I'll mention while I'm thinking of it, since recording that capture encounter, I have discovered that if you choke someone out with not quite enough time left, you actually do not get the safe, so bear that in mind. It's definitely better to shoot him in the head. So here I actually did consider getting the semi-auto rifle, but I decided in the end to just pick up one trap mine for the boss, because you can place one right at the beginning of the fight and it's pretty much free damage, and then to go for the reroll, and I got lucky and got the shotgun. But I figured between the revolver and hunting pistol with full ammo, I didn't need another gun for this encounter, strictly speaking, so I was okay with getting nothing from the reroll. The flamethrower would also be pretty usable for the rest of this board too. It's not really a gun that I will generally buy unless I end up in a position where like I didn't get what I want and it's like right near the end and it's an infected boss anyway. Like hypothetically, if I didn't get the shotgun on that reroll and then the next encounter I didn't get the shotgun or the semi-auto rifle, I think before the boss I would pick up a flamethrower if it was the only thing it gave me. The hunting rifle for Ellie weapon characters is kind of the same thing. At least on grounded where there's no damage upgrade, I'll pretty much only grab it like right before an infected boss if I have a spare holster or something. The problem is that without the damage upgrade, it's a 2-shot to the body to kill human enemies, whereas with the upgrade it's a 1-shot, so it's actually really good on lower difficulties, but it kind of sucks on grounded. So here are the upgrades I'm mostly just getting because I have extra parts and I might as well. But the scope on the hunting pistol actually is kind of good sometimes in the garage bloater fight just because the map is really big. The recoil and stability upgrades on the shotgun are kind of almost silly. A shotgun is like a point-blank range area effect weapon, so it doesn't really matter if the reticle shakes around a little bit. And since this shotgun only holds 2 shells anyway, all the recoil upgrade does is help you to land the second shot, and that seems kind of steep for 40 parts in my opinion. The recoil upgrade on Ellie's shotgun is technically better because it holds a lot more and has a fire rate upgrade, but I do, oddly enough, end up getting this one more just because there's like nothing else to get. As I mentioned before, Ellie's weapons tend to benefit more from multiple upgrades than Abby's weapons. The handgun and the crossbow are really the only ones that feel like you need more than one. I pretty much always grab the fire rate and recoil after the first mission if I start with the handgun. This pretty much lets you shoot it like a semi-automatic weapon because the recoil compensates for the fire rate, so you can just keep shooting and you'll still hit the target without having to compensate too much. For 70 parts total, it's a pretty good deal. And after the capacity, It's basically like a mini semi-auto rifle with no scope. The stability is alright too, but honestly, I don't find it that noticeable. Like, it's still relatively shaky after you get the upgrade. And for the crossbow, the reload speed upgrade is the one that really feels like it matters, because if you miss and you don't have that upgrade, you're not going to have time to shoot again before the enemy can fire back. And I would always take the scope over the stability upgrade, especially considering the reticle doesn't really shake around much when you're actually scoped. Anyway, for this encounter here, I'm going to camp this area here because the enemies will only come from basically the direction I'm looking right now. This only works if you have a lot of ammo, but if you do have a lot of ammo, I think it's a pretty safe and easy way to do this kind of encounter, especially with Joel. And the reason I'm in prone here is to get this gambit done. Often it is a good idea to hold off on the health gambits if they're ones that you can easily get when you're actually low on health in the middle of the encounter. But it's kind of hard to do with the prone kills one, so I figured I may as well just do it right at the start when there aren't many enemies on the map yet. I guess you could say I'm doing it more for the coin than the health in this case. Also, notice that I'm doing this from the right side of that big circular concrete planter thing with the bushes and trees, like to the left of where I'm aiming, where I'm looking right now. You could technically do it from the left side as well, but it doesn't give you quite as good visibility, and it's easier for an enemy to kind of sneak up from around that planter where you can't see. And if a shambler pops up out of nowhere and grabs you from around there, you're probably gonna die. But if you're over here, you can see both the top of the stairs and the door to the house, so it's not really likely that anything will sneak up on you. As I'm rewatching this, I am finding myself thinking more and more that the semi-auto rifle actually would have been better than the shotgun for the remainder of this board. The shotgun's always good to have against infected, but if you look at, well, aside from that stalker right there, if you look at how far I'm actually engaging the enemies from, the shotgun wasn't strictly necessary. I think I thought that runner was still alive there, hence the swing. Anyway, between this map, Jackson before, the garage bloater, and honestly even the shipping yard coming up, none of those are really enclosed space maps where you really want a shotgun like, well, any holdout or like the office maps, for example. So arguably this is an infected heavy route where skipping the shotgun is optimal. Right here, as you'll see in the last couple of seconds, I'm just kind of running away to burn the clock so I don't have to waste any more ammo. And that is sometimes a good idea, but bear in mind against infected, if you don't have any shivs, a clicker can pop out of nowhere pretty easily and just end your run with like 0.5 seconds left, so keep that in mind. So here I thought about picking up the hunting pistol ammo recipe because I knew I had more explosives than alcohol, so I wasn't going to be able to make too many pipe bombs. But I think I decided I'd rather leave those scissors there for shivs. And I also realized that if I got the melee weapon upgrade recipe on the next page at the shop, I'd be able to afford the health upgrade for this encounter. And I got lucky and it was there, so that was good. It is worth doing the math sometimes when you have a pill tree that has an upgrade that you can get via a recipe, just to see if there's something else you could potentially get for an encounter that might save your life. And I think this particular pill tree with the health upgrade is probably the most relevant example. And aside from that, I just stocked up on shotgun ammo here and got the last upgrade on it, which is stability and, like I said, not super important, but there's nothing else to spend my parts on, so I got it anyway. I did also briefly consider the trap mine recipe, but I figured on this map with so much ammo I probably wasn't going to use any on this encounter, and really I only want one for the boss to place right at the beginning. I've always hated how quickly, right here with no motion corresponding to it, the gun just turns gray. Like, it almost looks like a sleight of hand magic trick or something, and honestly, once you notice it, you can't unnotice it, so sorry. At least it's not an important upgrade. For this map, if you spawn close enough, it's always worth going up here, because most of the time you get an axe. I didn't get one this time, but it's usually a good spot for loot. It's also a pretty good place to start if you have a stealth weapon on a search encounter, but for this one I'd rather be on the ground and just make some distance between me and the enemies and just shoot them. Same idea as the Jackson encounter earlier, basically. This axe hit was actually a little bit risky with the shambler behind like that, but it worked out. Notice here both the way that I'm aiming and the way that I'm moving my character, that I'm trying to line up the shots so that I can shoot through and hit a second enemy as much as possible. It works with the hunting rifle as well, and the shotguns of course if you're close enough. To be honest, I'm not really sure why I did this dead drop, considering I have everything I need basically at this point, and I'm pretty sure you can't get holsters from them, so yeah, maybe a questionable decision. So same thing here, but just with the scope. I'm trying to line up these shots so that I can hit 2 at a time. For the last one, I'm using an incendiary shotgun shell for the gambit there. However, since I'm already full on health, it's kind of like I'm selling the shell for 4 coins, which may or may not be a good idea. It's always good to have as much money as possible before the boss, though.
Close one.
Definitely not picking that up. The crossbow is situationally quite good, like for search encounters, and a couple of the bosses where you start stealth, it can be pretty good too, but not here. If the holster was there, I would have grabbed the semi-auto rifle, but no luck. I'm not sure why I grabbed these trap mines here either, other than that I had a lot of money and was unlikely to get enough stuff to buy on the next page. I'm pretty sure I didn't end up using any of them. I should have used one at the start at least, but as you're about to see, I for some reason didn't. But you can actually use multiple in this fight safely most of the time. It's a big boss arena, so you can just go to the other side, make a lot of distance, and as long as there aren't any regular infected enemies spawned in, you can get away with putting multiple down during the fight. I didn't do that though, I had enough ammo that it wasn't really an issue. But if you do, just make sure you remember where it is so you don't get caught in the explosion. It would be really sad to lose a run that way. So I'm not sure why I decided to just go for the revolver shots here. Instead, you should just place a trap mine right where you start and then back away. But anyhow, that's what I decided to do for some reason. If you watch the top players play this boss, you'll probably notice that they tend to do no guns. The reason is that you get more points that way, and there's actually quite a lot of stuff around the level, like crafting materials and so on, that you can use to make bombs and whatnot. But if you're not going for a high score and you're just trying to get your first grounded run, I think the best approach is to just stay really mobile, like I'm doing here. Take shots at the boss from a safe distance whenever you can like this, but just be careful you don't get cloud thrown at you, and also don't do that and, you know, run right into a shambler explosion. But anyway, the shotgun is good for clearing out the regular infected enemies. It does pretty decent damage to the bloater as well, but you kind of have to kite around the cars if you want to do that, and you might find that a bit tricky, so I would generally suggest you save it for the runners and stuff. I probably shouldn't have taken that last shot there. I could have been grabbed by the runner and then have the cloud thrown at me. But anyway, as you can see here, pipe bombs are a pretty efficient way to clear out the regular enemies in this encounter. They're also good against the boss, but you might find that when you're overwhelmed, just chucking them at stalkers and runners is a pretty good way to thin the ranks. As you can see there, it does a decent chunk to the boss, but the nice thing about using it on runners and so on is that you can throw them without stopping running. And since the level is so big and there are so many crafting materials lying around, you can usually find a moment to craft some extra ones. There are also a lot of bricks and melee weapons you can use to help with the runners and stalkers. This right here was close to going quite badly. Thankfully, the cloud there didn't quite hit me and I had a shiv to feed that stalker. I'm actually surprised I wasn't quite in red health here. As you'll see in a little bit, I go to craft some more pipe bombs. I probably should have gone for the heal instead, especially given the gash you can see on Joel's forehead. It is sometimes hard to judge how much health you have on grounded. Here I'm going for a little bit of ring around the rosy to try and get a clear shot. You might prefer to make a little more distance than that. Yeah, here's where I probably should have just healed instead. Kind of a sad pipe bomb there. This here is another misplay that could have gone badly, especially given I probably didn't have that much health going into that. Nice shotgun shot there too, the other way. But yeah, I don't know, maybe the TV wasn't loud enough or something, like to hear the stalker noise. So I think that's the end of the regular enemies, and you might prefer to make more distance when you're fighting just the bloater at the end, but I went for the ring around the rosy here. Make sure when you hear the charge noise that you don't just run away from it in a straight line, because it will just hit you. I thought I was going to be able to finish it off here, but I ran out of shells. Seems kind of fitting to finish it off with the revolver here as Joel anyway. So yeah, like I said earlier, I think Joel is a character where it often makes sense to lean into aggressive, infected-oriented encounters, and I think this is a half-decent example of how you can do that. I am going to try and do a video like this for every character, slowly but surely. I have a Dina one recorded. I'm going to skim the footage and make sure it's worth posting, but sooner or later I'll get to every character, so thanks for watching and see you in the next one.